Oh, he spent everything he had.
He stopped training after that round.
He was trying to kill me. He wanted to kill me.
Oh, man. All right.
No, it was good.
Do you guys want to kick off this podcast?
Let's kick it off.
Always.
All right. Here we are, combat-based podcasts. Another one.
Yep.
We are
teeth.
joined by the teeth cleaner, the CEO, the femme fatale, the black belt, Melissa Haueter.
What's up?
What up?
What's up, y'all?
Yay. We're joined by the venerable Chris Haueter.
Yay!
We're joined by Tom from England.
What's
Hey.
up, Tom?
Hey, mate.
Tom in the
Did
audience.
they say mate? Okay. Hey, mate.
The Tom Kitchen from England.
He
From London.
Skipped across the pond to join the pod. We're with John behind the lens. I'm Tobin, the producer. And we're going to do a historical pod today.
Ooh, boy.
We're going
If
to
it's
go
historical, it's hysterical.
and we're going to go and do some exotic travel on the pod today. We're going to travel to Brazil.
Ooh.
Brazil.
We're going
Ooh
to
la
hear a
la.
story about the first American black belt to compete at the Brazilian Jiu Jitsu World Championship. And I'm looking right at him.
That was me. I was the first American black belt to compete in the Mundials. I wish I would have won, or it'd be a much better story.
Did you lose your first match?
Yes, I did.
How?
9 points, 9-2.
That's
What year was
it?
Hey, that's yeah.
He
I've,
took
I've
third.
done that before.
He took third.
I've done that before and still been proud, right?
Yeah.
Because I fought Mackenzie Dern and I lost 9-2. You scored.
I mean, yeah.
You didn't get submitted.
It was a lot of. I actually learned a lot about a lot of things from that trip. A lot of things. So we go back. I'm a new black belt. I won my first black belt match here in the States against a Brazilian. I've talked about that on the pod before. It was
Armbar.
at
That's
the
really good.
the Joe Moreira comp, and they announced the fight. Other matches stopped. People rushed the mat. Back in the days where people would be all around the edge of the mat, so it was almost like a pit. Hickson was the ref. I was thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get killed, but at least I'll give him the best fight I had. And I was up on points and mounted and did that nice, cautious, slow mount. I remember thinking, or I could see Hickson's foot as I mounted there, and I'm like, don't fuck this up. Don't fuck this up. And I got the arm bar perfect, came into it perfect, all slow, smooth, controlled, not a spazzy flying into the arm bar or anything. It was like a really good learning experience. And one of the things that I often say is just for my ego, confidence, psyche, thank God I won my first black belt match, because it kind of set me mentally off in the correct course. Whereas I often wonder what would have happened had I lost that one. Because I've talked to people as a coach, you know, who go, God, I've never won a match and this and this. Like, I often wonder if the mental positioning of being a winner or being a loser, how that affects your game. And it's like, if in any bracket, in all the combat sports, there's generally 3 or 4 who are always on the podium. And there's usually one who holds that for a while, who's always number one, right? And when sometimes I think they don't even know how they got there, other than, yes, hard work, a bit of luck in not being injured, being at the right place in the right time, natural athletics, all that stuff. But the mental part is the part that sometimes I think we as athletes, we don't even really know what the actual mental part is, because it's below consciousness, right?
Well, some people study this and actually host like camps
Yes.
on mental preparedness.
Yes.
I can think of some people that like compete in masters that win all the time, and then they have camps where you can go and learn how to do what they do.
Yep.
Whether or not you can actually do it, who knows? Because I think it's almost like some kind of brain wiring.
It's brain wiring.
And you can't teach
Yeah.
somebody necessarily how to rewire their brain that easily. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm saying that I think it would be really hard.
Yes, and I know that it's kind of like one of those things in terms of my. If I was going to put some wise approach, I would say ultimately competing. There's some stuff that you have a lot of control over, and some stuff that you have no control over. And I think it's hard for us to accept that ultimately we do not have control over the outcome. So we mentally prepare ourselves. I think the wrong way is to convince yourself that you can control whether you win or lose. And in one sense, you can, in the fact you can control your preparation, but you cannot control the outcome. And I think part of the beauty of combat sports is surrendering to the unknown, meaning that I have no idea if I will win. It's like, I remember in those early days, like if you get into an argument at the bar or in the shopping line and it ends up in an altercation, you are kind of controlling and choosing whether you want to be in that engagement or not. Most of the time, we're all aware we could not say anything back at the guy who insulted us or whatever it was and walk away. But when you sign up to compete, you don't walk away. You do other things to walk away, like not make weight, all these other mental tricks, get injured before so you can get out of the fight. And even though a street fight is clearly, like rules-wise, more intense, competing mentally is more intense, I think.
Because there's more anticipation.
Yes, because like imagine if we said, okay, a month away, there will be a guy who's going to start shit with you either in the supermarket line or driving. If you knew that was coming, you would have a whole other mental set. And in some ways, it's healthy to put yourself in that place. And in other ways, I think it's very unhealthy to like put yourself in that mindset. All right, in 29 days, the tournament starts. 28 days. Oh my God, I'm not ready. I got to go cram cardio or whatever it is. But I think going through that process of getting ready is the beauty of it, not the outcome. And some people say, oh, you say that because you lost in the Mundials. Yeah, I did. But going through the whole thing of going to Brazil, being interviewed, realizing that I'm the only American black belt there, my coaches weren't there in the corner at all. I couldn't even understand my name. I got help to like walk out on the mat. It's the little 1/2-inch puzzle mats. And yeah, it was kind of like, in terms of that, it was a truly surreal experience in 1,000 ways. And it was really cool. And I saw like how the Brazilian Jiu Jitsu subculture of the crowds and the singing and chanting and all that stuff that was like happening. It was totally, in a way, unlike what I experienced at the early American tournaments. And the whole trip was really cool.
What year was this?
This
Sorry.
was, I want to say it was 89.
No, because you weren't a black belt in 89. You start 99?
99.
99, yes. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, geez, yeah. 99, yeah. And as an amateur anthropologist, I found the trip absolutely fascinating. I love comparing and contrasting cultures, and
Hey,
there were perceptions I had of not only Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu culture, but Brazilian culture that I realized were absolutely wrong.
Like what? What was?
And other
that?
ones that I realized were I was right, but not exactly right. Like it's definitely a patriarchal honor culture, and I don't mean all of Brazil. I mean the Brazilian combat sports culture is a patriarchal honor culture. Like I always remember, like I was excited for tropical warm water waves. I'm there with Chance. He's a blue belt. We have on our board shorts, these white dudes, and we walk down on the beach because we had a place like right off the beach. And every dude is in black Speedos, mankinis. And it was like that culture clash where if they were on an LA beach, people would be looking at them like, fuck, you're weird. Look at
Maybe
you,
not.
dude, wearing a mankini.
We got all kinds.
We got all kinds, but like there, we
99,
stood out
99.
like turds in Punch Bowl, right?
Yeah.
And then I also remember being advised by one of my coaches to don't stare at any other girls. If you stare at the girl, it's very disrespectful in our culture.
Not even stare. You're not supposed
You're not
to
supposed to get
look.
caught looking.
Don't let your gaze be caught
Yes.
on a woman.
Looking at
especially
another
if she's
woman.
with a man.
Right. And you make sure, and if they are single, they will let you know. So it also has kind of a weird kind of, and part of what I remember at this time, I was thinking about, because it was before 9/11 and post 9/11, the West got obsessed with Islam, people being afraid of Islam, right? And when I would reflect back, there was a lot about Islamic culture, because it's a patriarchal honor culture, which is why women wear veils, because to expose your beauty, attractiveness to a man is it was a really interesting experience being in this other culture. And
You want to talk about your nightclubbing experience?
yeah, I will. And
Yeah, well.
there's but good and bad about it, right? So yeah, like I don't even remember everything, but
I remember something.
the next day after the competition, these guys, we went to a Baja school and trained, and it was the first time that I was on a mat that was filled with black belts, which was totally like mind blowing. And it was one of the things where I realized, like, people back then would ask me all the time, like, why aren't you opening up a school? I really thought that all these jobless black belts will figure out really quickly I could move to any town USA, open up a school, and have 300 guys in a month. Because Jiu Jitsu was in its second popularity explosion. UFC was happening, and people were seeking it out. I remember the Machado School, the phone, this is back before anyone had mobile phones, or when you did, you had roaming charges, anything out of LA and all that. The phone would be ringing off the hook. People who wanted seminars in Wichita, Kansas, and over here, karate schools, judo schools. It was a time where the other martial arts were very curious and wanted to host the Machados or whoever. I remember trying to convince the Machados, send me, because I want to travel. And they're like, no, we're not going to do that. And this and this. Like, there's a lot of things. But like, I really like, wow, I want to become a traveling instructor. It looks really cool. I don't want to challenge guys. I want to go teach. And so here I am in Brazil. I competed. I had my match. I want to say it was 9-2. I got a reversal at one point, a sweep, which I called reversals then. It still offends me that in wrestling, if you're in a guard and I somehow scramble and end up in your guard, that's only an advantage in IBJJF rules. Back then it wasn't yet. I call that an anti-American rule, because American wrestlers were good at bailing the guard, scrambling, putting you on your back, which in my opinion is 2 fucking points. I don't care whether I use my legs or a hook or however it is. I think that's one of the worst rules in IBJJF. It's the guard lovers that stuck that rule in there, and because they had corral belts, they'll win that fight. I ain't gonna win that fight, but anyhow.
Or if you just come up and push them over.
That should be a sweep.
It's not though, right?
It's an
like
advantage.
and that I remember that rule was introduced even while I was competing.
Was it?
Because I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure it was the
Yeah, it seems-
early 2000s when that rule was
Seems much
was
harder to
introduced.
be like pinned and then turn the situation over.
It's an
than it is from the guard.
anti-American
But,
rule.
Yeah.
Yep. And that was happening because American wrestlers, of which I was one, Bob Bass, other guys, we didn't really find it out until we were like purple belts, because I couldn't do that to Hegan or Hickson, but I could do that to my fellow purple belts who had no wrestling experience. I realized I could out wrestle my peers. And as I advanced in the ranks, I realized at a black belt, I can even out wrestle some of my peers. Now, I'm a new black belt, I'm 30 years old, whatever. But so that next day after the comp, we're on the mat, and there's all these black belts and brown belts, and everyone was super cool. And there were black belt peers like my weight who wanted to roll with me, which was really awesome. Which later years down the road, when I might be on a mat, it was very common that I would see a black belt who was around my weight class, and I'd be, hey, do you want to roll? I'm excited. And they would make up an excuse. No, my wind, I'm feeling a bit under the weather. But then I'd see him roll with 4 purple belts. It's like, and that's what like built this resentment I had against people who dodge. And I vowed that I would never dodge. That if somebody who is plus or minus a belt, plus or minus a weight class, but challenges me, that mentally and ethically I am obligated to give them a roll. Now, if a blue belt heavyweight challenges me, I'm not obligated. But if a Masters 5 black belt, my weight, wants a roll, to not roll with him, I'm a dick. Because I would expect that same thing. Now, as I become Masters deeper in this thing with injuries and other issues, part of that has changed. Now I do dodge, where for years when I would teach, and this also comes back in the challenge days, and one of the things that I think it was Hegan explained, that part of the reason why a black belt lines up the room is you're Iron Manning yourself. You're putting yourself on the spot, beginning with the lowest ranks that will wear you out. So by the time you get to the highest rank in the room, you are already worn out. It's a way to train yourself. And so in the early days, I would line up the room in Iron Man, because that's what the Machados did. That's what Hickson did. That's what Hoist would sometimes do. That's what Jean-Jacques always did. Like, it's almost like he went to teach with the goal of rolling with the room. And that seems so much better than going there to teach, to show how good your martial art is, and then not roll with anyone. Seems so fucking dodgy to me.
But that's what you do now.
Now I do that because usually right after I teach, people want to take a bunch of pictures. I cool down. I'm not interested in having the purple belt heavyweight want to roll with me, his A game. I want to go out and eat and be dropped off at the airport. So yeah, it has changed. And back when I was younger, there were many times where I got on a plane where I got to at least wash my hands before I was dropped off at the airports. So like that, I don't recommend that. I recommend make sure you get a shower after you roll. I've become a guy that after I roll, before I stop sweating, I want a shower. It's just like...
That's why I kind of think it's nice to go for 2 days. That way you don't have to worry about rushing to the airport. And I think some instructors prefer to do that.
Yes.
Like they fly in the day before,
Yep.
teach, and then fly out the next day.
The
So
next day.
you're gone a little longer,
Yep.
but at least you can take a shower
A lot of them do.
and wash your gi.
Yep.
So you
So
don't
anyway,
stank.
back to Brazil. I'm on this really cool mat, having this really cool experience. I remember one of the guys, I think it was like middleweight or light heavyweight. He took second in the Mundials. He was on the mat. He was super cool. Showed me some things. This was the dawn of a pressure, and everyone like knew that Keegan had really worked out, was working on this new game. And I watched John Machado roll with him and like 4 others and just fucking like play with these guys. And I remember asking John, like, John, why didn't you compete? Because like John stopped competing after he won a brown belt. And for like whatever reason, he didn't want to compete. And it made me really wonder, like, some people compete because they want to and can win. Some people compete because they want to and don't care if they win. Some people know they could win, feel pressure, and compete because they feel like they're obligated to. And John, I remember just thinking, God, why wouldn't you want to compete? If you like, literally, I just watched you roll with the guy in one weight class every year who took second place, and you dominated him. And afterwards, when you're rolling with some other guy, he's explaining to me how good you are. And it's like, it just seemed weird that why he wouldn't compete. I
And
remember.
he never told you?
No. And I didn't really ask him. I kind of asked him, but it was one of those things where that would have been too personal of a question to really ask, but I sort of asked it, and he's, oh, yeah, I'm going to be an actor, whatever it was.
He had other aspirations.
He had other aspirations other than Jiu Jitsu competition.
Was Keegan still competing at that time?
Keegan was.
Did he compete in that Mundial?
He did not compete in that Mundial, but he competed in the next year Pans, which was held in the U.S. for the first time, and he won. I remember he passed Haueter's guard, who was like this guy who was known as having the guard that was cleaning everyone up, and it was one of those matches that was really silent. I think Hickson reffed it, and it was this methodical pressure pass because Keegan had been working on this new game, and everyone watched him with silence as he passed this guy's guard who was killing everyone back in Rio. And Keegan pressure slowly, got his base rocked for a second, but dropped his hips and pressure passed, cross sides and mounted, and the match was over. It was a slow, not like a fast pass. It took him like 7 minutes to pass, to not get swept and pass. And it was like, I would say like that was the period where the pressure game, which had really started with Keegan, and Hickson would like be like very curious about it because he was adding it as well. The older guys were rejecting it. The guard guys were working on these new guards, Spider Guard, De La Hiva Guard. Like this was all new. And because you didn't have YouTube, you didn't know what you got on the mat. Like I remember competing once as a brown belt and early as a black belt where I would slip my De La Hiva hook in, and I could tell right away if they'd experienced that or not. And if not, I'm getting your back. It's like you have no idea. It kind of like how Eddie Bravo beat Haueter. Haueter had no idea what he was walking into with rubber guard. Just was because I remember early on when rubber guard's blowing up at Jean-Jacques school, isolated at that school, they would come over to Keegan's Sunday open mat after I would have a women's class. And the first couple times I'm in rubber guard, I'm like, fuck, I can't do anything. And they creep up and creep up. Now I'm in a triangle. It's like, what the fuck? Now I'm in a plata. I mean, it was kind of cool. And yeah, so we're on that mat. And then that night, these younger purple belts, they want to bring us out to a nightclub. He picks us up in his souped up little Honda race car. And it was the most frightening fucking drive I'd ever had. Driving at 95 miles an hour, weaving in and out of cars.
How many people were in the car?
It was packed. I was in the back seat, middle hump, holding on the fucking seat, telling Chance, if anything happens, fucking don't let me fly through this windshield. This dude, like, Chance is asking me, hey, can you slow down? And don't ask him. The more you ask, the more he wants to impress us.
Does Chance speak Portuguese?
No.
No.
And it was like a drive where when we got out of that fucking car, I remember thinking, no matter what happens, we aren't getting back in that fucking car.
Right.
There's no way after partying, I'm going to go back in that fucking car. It was a frightening fucking drive. Like cutting in and out of cars by inches. It's like, knock this off. Oof.
How long was it?
That was about a 15, 20-minute drive.
It felt like an eternity.
Felt like an eternity.
Do you remember the name of the club you guys
I
went to?
do not remember the name of the club, but it was packed. One of the ways my brain thinks, call it tactical or whatever, is I'm always analyzing crowds. I don't really enjoy crowds at all. Mm-hmm. I'm always looking for exits, picturing if that crowd suddenly panics and starts moving this way, which way I'm going to go. I'm just not a crowd fan. I don't like concerts. I don't like being stuck in places where there's a lot of human beings because they're unpredictable when a panic hits.
Yeah.
And
But mostly safe, statistically.
But
he loves flying.
It's like air travel.
Yeah.
I feel way more comfortable on a plane in
Going
the
like
turbulence
Yeah.
than I do in a crowded concert hall imagining a terrorist attack or a nut blasting a gun off. That has me way more occupied.
I think that's less likely to happen than the plane issue.
Statistically, it probably is.
Remember we were at the Slaughterhouse show and the mosh pit like broke out?
That doesn't worry me.
No.
It's a small enough
little?
place. It's a small, big
Because we just
crowd.
went to SoFi, and it's,
yeah.
it's
Big.
huge. So I'm just wondering,
but crowded,
he went, though.
Yeah.
But crowded
It looked like you were doing good in the video.
parks. But to me, like I often say, like an uncrowded Disneyland really is the happiest place on earth. A crowded is hell on earth. Like I find it hellish.
Yeah,
I find when I can no longer see like the downtown Disney, the props, the rides and all that, when it's just a wall of humans, I find it to be just
I don't think it gets like that anymore
maddening.
because of you have to have reservations.
They've
It's better. I still wouldn't go in the summer. People don't go to Disneyland in the summer.
But so back anyways.
Then we can go again.
Yeah.
Back to Brazil.
We're
Santa
in this-
Ana to Brazil.
We're in this nightclub. Now, since I was a white belt, I had a thing for Brazilian girls.
Interesting.
Dun dun dun.
This was before boob jobs, which now they all have, or not all of them. And I know that this is going to sound misogynistic as hell, but I like petite girls with itty-bitty waists and big butts. And I don't care about boobs. And
Sorry.
so I'm in this place, and I've been on the beach trying to keep my eyes to myself, just going, oh my God. Like the most beautiful women in the world are truly in Brazil. Now, someone's going to correct me on there, and it's true. Every culture, wherever you go, there are beautiful human beings. And to each has their own little tastes. There are some Eastern European that are just stunningly beautiful. There are some Asian countries I've been where people are stunningly beautiful. But for my tastes, what I saw, which is a lot of mixed race people, I've always liked mixed race, I saw stunningly beautiful women. And I was hoping I would meet my wife. Now,
Well, I wasn't there. I was in high school. No, I was in college.
Yeah.
I was in
So-
college.
At UCLA.
And I'm not Brazilian.
Being a prudent UCLA student.
Yes, that's being a prudent UCLA student.
we're in this
Out of the
club
club.
with
Rio.
pulsing, throbbing, loud music, which Chance and I were thinking maybe this is good because you can't talk anyways, so we'll be able to meet
Yeah.
girls and blah,
Yeah,
blah,
yeah.
blah. And then both but Chance and I later that night were like, God, that place was awful. And like, so the guys who brought us, I remember like in between songs, like Chance and I are asking, how do you meet with the girls? And you would see like cliques of girls often linked up arm to arm in the crowd. And he said, you just go take one. And I'm like, how do you know if they're single? And he goes, if they're in a group of girls, they are. If you could tell the ones who aren't. And you look around, yeah, there's like girl and dude, girl and dude, girl and dude. Little group of girls, pack of guys. Little group of girls, pack of guys. Girl and dude, girl and dude, girl and dude. It's like, oh, okay, I'm figuring out how it works. And he kind of explained, you catch their eye first, and if they look back at you again, then it's kind of an okay. But if they only look at you once, don't fucking do it. And I'm, do what? And it's like, go get them. And I'm like, what do you mean? How do you go get them? And he goes, I'm going to show you. And we're watching him, and a group like comes by, and he gets a smile. He's talking with his other friend. I guess he kind of was smiling at her last week at the beach or like whatever it was. And he literally goes and pulls her while her friends are trying to hold her. He pries her away, and within 15 minutes they're leaning against the wall making out. And then his friend's like, that's how you do it. And I'm like, I can't fucking do that. That would be a crime in America, right? I can't fucking do that. And he's like, that's what you got to do. So they like pump my confidence. Like, you're a black belt. You're American. They'll love you, all this. So it's like I caught a smile by a girl a couple times. I'm going, yeah, she's really cute. I'm going to go try. I started trying. One of the girls started pushing me away. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry.
That's amazing.
They're like, oh, man, you're too passive. So then anyways.
They're like, this American guy doesn't have what it takes to do the deal down here.
American fucking prudes, right?
Yeah.
These American prudes. Yeah, I really did feel kind of prudish.
Yeah.
It's like, as an American, like, we think of ourselves as these macho cowboy guys.
And sophisticated. Macho cowboy.
There are some European countries where I feel like my macho scale is higher than my fellow men in this place.
Yeah.
In Brazil, my macho scale is much fucking lower.
Yeah. I feel
right?
that. Yeah.
Much lower.
Yeah.
But so that night, the Chance and I went to a place to eat, and we actually met some girls and had a long talk. Chance actually ended up hooking up with one girl. Chance always hooked up with a girl.
Chance was the ladies' man.
Yes. Anywhere we went, he always hooked up and met with some girl.
Did
Chance is he's a smooth talker.
Did he fight as a blue belt?
Yeah.
At the tournament?
Yep.
Nice.
So was he the first American blue belt to compete?
No. He was not the first American blue belt. Egan Inouye fought a blue belt and won. Oh. And I coached him.
Oh,
that
nice.
year?
Yep. He won that year. Yep.
Nice.
And it was Rico Rodriguez fought and got robbed. Like, absolutely robbed. He was a wrestler. He was up like 10 points. The guy got some kind of thing. The ref ran over and stopped the match. And I'm like in the corner, and I'm like wondering why he stopped it. I didn't see
DQ?
Anyone tap. He raises the other guy's hand. Rico's like, what the fuck? I'm like, what happened? He goes, he tapped. He didn't tap. It was his friend.
I'd say it was cheating, but it was just normal.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
Normal jiu-jitsu stuff.
The other thing that I will remember about that trip is we went with a group. There's probably about 15 or 20 of us Americans who went.
Oh, wow.
And I remember 5 of them were these very yoked Americans that were just fucking swole up. And I realized very quickly within 12 hours of landing why they go to Brazil, because you can get the best enhancements in the world there, which is why there's a lot of movie stars that if you look at their arrest record, they were arrested leaving Brazil, and they happen to be taking prescriptions that are allowed in Brazil but not in America, like that whole thing. Yeah. It's like, from what I've heard, Israel, Russia, Brazil are the roid capitals of the world. Just like Florida is the opiate capital. That's where everyone gets the script dope from. And we're not going to turn this into a roid episode, but yeah, so like, and then like that was one of those things where I realized I was starting to become aware how many people were on supplements. And it was within that next year, I did a little dabbling with them, but it scared me. We've talked about that on an earlier pod. I didn't want to get that fucking forehead enlargement shit that I saw people get. I saw guys, I'm not going to name drop some pretty big names. I saw go from my weight class to heavyweight class in 9 months, including bone growth, and which also means organ enlargement, which also means taking 20 to 30 years off your life when you're older. And I knew from hearing my dad, who was a high school basketball coach, football coach, he like knew about it. He's like, no, all these guys, especially heavyweights who roid up, they're literally taking decades off their end of their life. So it's like, am I willing to, do I want to win in this thing so much? And I understand why people do, why they say, I want to win and I want to do every edge I possibly can. And if that includes TRT, I'm going to do it. But to me, it just doesn't seem that fucking glorious.
Yeah.
And I don't want to take years off my old age.
Where did you stay when you were there?
We stayed at, I guess it would be similar to what's called an Airbnb now. It was like the 15th floor on a high rise right off the Rio Beach.
Nice.
And it's kind of cool.
What did you eat? How'd you find the food?
Acai. This is where I found acai.
They didn't have acai here yet?
No, not even.
I waited 10 years. That was another thing. I'm like, if somebody learns how to import this, they will become a fucking millionaire. This is the best food I've ever had. I had it every morning for a week.
It's basically ice cream.
Acai bowls.
Did you go to that? What's the place like? Bebe Sucos?
God,
is the name of
the
classic place there?
It was so long ago, but we went to a lot of those classical places, Florianopolis, and like all those things in that classic big sidewalk with the different broken tiles in it and all that. Yep, and heard about like, I remember once we're on the beach, I'm hanging around a guy, he was a brown belt, spoke English well, and I'm with all these like tough Jiu Jitsu dudes, MMA guys, and they were kind of scared of when the criminals come. Because I guess a band of like 200 of them come, and in a line they'll walk on and just demand everyone's watch and wallet.
Whoa, gnarly.
And yeah, it's like, so yeah, it's kind of a gnarly place. And I mean, like I remember Hickson saying the only place that I'm ever really scared is when I'm in the edge of the favelas.
Yeah.
Because there's like here, there's a lot of guns. It's also, I don't want to get into anything controversial, but you know where those guns come from? America.
Yeah.
Just like in Mexico, Colombia. 99% of all guns that go south are purchased legally at U.S. gun shows. That's the loophole. And make their way to cartels, gangsters down south. Huge industry. Just like we have all the drugs. Where there's a demand, someone will fill that supply, right? Let's still like blaming the drug problem on the South. It's like, nope, we have the demand. You could say blaming the gun problem on us. They have the demand, so we will create the supply. And that would be in the philosophy of ethics. Not that I think we should be selling guns down south, but
happens.
They make their way down there.
How did you feel like the people or the other jiu-jitsu guys viewed you when you came. So you went to go train at a Gracie Baja
Yep.
place, and I'm sure, did
trained
you
there.
train on any other mats, or was that
That was the
one
only mat.
And then how were you
I talked
taken in there?
with Haueter, and I could be wrong because I could be mixing up 2 stories, 2 years, but there was one point where Haueter invited me to his mat, Humaita had just kind of opened, which was an offshoot, and the Baja I trained at was the one that later got a burn down, arson.
Mm-hmm.
There's some arson thing happened, because like I often think of it as like from my perspective, it looked like mafia wars,
Mm-hmm.
and there was the beginnings of mafia wars happening, because when you only have like a group of black belts that small and they all know each other, they can control it. But once you make black belts and then black belts make black belts, then there's rivalries and people start opening up schools. And in order to make a living, you have to do things other than work at the acai shop. And there's an underground income network there. That's a whole other world.
But so when you showed up to that place, how were you received by everybody? Was it the same thing like here we experience, you walk into a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu place that has a lot of Brazilian guys. They're super duper friendly, super duper warm. They want to welcome you in.
I'm awesome.
And they want to, it's a very like cordial exchange. How
For
did it feel?
me, it was a very warm, welcoming, but I didn't walk in there cocky. If you walk in there cocky, you're going to get humbled.
But
Yeah.
you also walked in with like John Machado, who
Yes.
was well respected.
So John
It's
was there
not
with
like-
you, and
Yeah.
he like kind of
On that
took you in?
on that first time to the Baja mat, yeah, he brought us there, introduced us.
Did he was he in the U.S.? Did he travel with you guys?
He traveled down there. yeah.
So you had like a guy with you kind of showing you around.
John was in Chris's wedding.
I know that.
Carlos was.
Oh, it was Carlos.
It was Carlos,
okay.
yeah.
Oh, it was Carlos. It was one of them. All I know is it wasn't Hegan.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good trip. I mean, all in all, it was a great experience. But when I got home, although physically I was still attracted to Brazilian girls, emotionally and mentally I wasn't.
It exhausted you?
I was exhausted.
You were worn
yeah.
out. I'm trying to figure it out.
Yep, I was like, wow, and then, yeah, it was kind of a thing. So, yeah, it's interesting because years later, when I met my wife, she looked, but right off the bat, I'm like, she's Brazilian. Like, I thought she's got to be Brazilian. And when she would compete,
They would talk to me in
people would
Portuguese.
think
Really?
she's Brazilian. And,
I could see it.
yeah.
Nice. And then how was it coming back? You got back. How was it on the mats when you got back? One thing I actually
The
wanted to ask
American
you.
mats were fucking easy compared to
Really?
the Brazilian mats.
Was it tough over
They're
there?
a lot fucking tougher.
You had mentioned one
A
time in the
lot
past
tougher.
that you said that you felt like when you went to Brazil, the Brazilian guys kind of had the notion that Hegan, Hickson, Horian had been creating good black belts in the United States, but they hadn't quite seen one yet.
Yes.
And you were that one that
yes.
they saw.
I was
And
one of
so-
the first ones. They knew I'd won in the States.
Mhm.
That I think before that time I had 2 matches, 1 win, 1 loss. And the loss was 2 points. It was a clever, and it was a close fight, one of those like fights that we spent most of it on our feet. Then I'd pull guard and try to get something, and then go, fuck, we're back on our feet again. Like, he is good.
Yeah.
He's a good, he knows how to compete within the rules of that game so well and
Badass.
make sure that he just dominates enough that they're going to raise his hand if it's even close, right?
Yeah, he's awesome.
But yes, so yeah, they were curious, and there was those first couple of years, like all the really good Brazilians. Like, again, I thought within a couple of years they would move up and be opening up schools everywhere. It took 10 to 15 more years for that to happen that I thought was going to happen a lot quicker. Like now, yeah, there's a school on every block, right? But I thought that would have happened as quick, because during that same time was another thing that you found everywhere was coffee shops. This popularity of coffee shops opening everywhere. And I remember this new company from Seattle coming down called Starbucks, and people say, buy stock in this. And I remember thinking, there's no way coffee's going to fucking get that big. That's not going to get big. That was one of the ones where I had the wrong instinct on it.
Yeah.
I had the right one on Home Depot, Apple, Tesla, but I thought for sure no one's going to keep buying coffee, frozen yogurt. No one's going to keep buying that shit. They want ice cream. But yeah.
What can you do? So you got home and the mats felt a little soft?
Softer.
Yeah.
Not soft, but one of the things that I realized, which all good schools, there's a critical mass of peers that you need in order for that peer group to go and get good.
Mm-hmm.
If you pull 3 or 4 out of them and you put them in a school that's filled with less athletic lower belts, it will inhibit their training. Because you fight how you train. You fight like who you train with.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not rolling with guys that are trying to tear your head off, you're not going to in turn try to tear others' heads off. And I don't mean tear your head off in a stiff, aggressive way, but in a game way. People that are trying to win, right? And all of the combat sport champions, which many of them have written books and all that. Like, what is so critical is the people you train with. You need those bodies. You need that guy that's just under you, who wants your slot, and the guy just above you that you want his slot, where everyone's fighting to be the king of the hill, right? And that creates an environment to where when you compete, you don't have to talk yourself into anything because it's already there. Whereas if you're not in that world, you do have to mentally prepare yourself in a whole other way. And yeah.
It's kind of funny. I feel like I realized at one point that like you actually don't want to be the like top guy.
Because a bunch of people want to knock you off that pedestal.
You want to be getting chased by people to push you forward. Like if your goal really is to improve, it's almost like, I think Chime explained this to me when I was a brown belt. He was like, you don't want to be a brown belt for too long because you want to be that brown belt that's nipping at the black belt's butts. And then you want to be that new black belt that's struggling to be a black belt because you're going to push yourself into that range, and then all the brown belts are going to be really chasing you hard. And it's almost like that spot where you're getting chased and then you're chasing is like the best spot for growth. For growing.
It is the best spot. It's a growth place.
Yeah.
And when you have 4 of those people in a school, it's one thing. When you have 40, it's then some guy's a good night, some guy's a bad night, some guy's a great night. This like that interchange creates the environment of growth. Which is another reason why I say environment trumps will every time. And if you want to get good, you have to put yourself into that environment. And
there's another aspect though too, that maybe somebody can't ever truly be like the top guy in a group because everyone's game plays differently on everyone else's game.
True.
So somebody might be really hard for one person to deal with, and then another person deals with that person easily. But those 2 people have a different, dynamic. So it really is dynamics of individuals, and everybody has strengths and weaknesses, and how someone responds to a person's strengths is going to be different depending on the person.
One guy has a great spider guard, but this guy has a great spider guard counter.
Right.
But this guy has a horrible spider guard counter, but a great this kind of guard. Yeah.
So really, it's a more complex dynamic.
Yeah.
Yes, certainly.
Certainly.
And to evolve, what do you need? Diversification.
There you go. Well, cool story. That's awesome. The Brazil story.
That's my only Brazil story. Yep.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot more stuff to hear about and talk about, but we are running short on time now.
Yeah.
So we got to move on with our show.
Let's move on. Yep.
Do you have a gym shout out of the day?
Oh.
Did you work on that? Shout them out.
Let's give a shout out to Rough Hands Jiu Jitsu.
Oh,
You
yeah.
done that before?
We haven't done that one.
No, we haven't.
It's a
But
good one.
Jesse Walker.
Jesse Walker, yeah.
Louisville, Kentucky.
Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah, Rough Hands Jiu Jitsu is an independent boutique training center specializing in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and submission grappling.
It is a great place. I've been there.
Founded and forged in Louisville, Kentucky, we believe in a life of persistence, perseverance, and constant improvement. We don't espouse violence, but we love the fight. The fight against our shortcomings, our limits, our weaknesses, the fight against our fears, the fight to improve our lives and the lives of those around us. And I know they also do yoga over there. Jesse's wife is a yoga teacher.
Yeah, it's a family business. I like that. Those guys are nice.
It's a great place. Very, very welcoming, high quality instruction.
And just one of the things that Jesse kind of prides himself in is they have an equal number of enrolled women and men. So I think that's kind of,
That's cool.
that's not a
That's
norm.
rare.
Yeah.
It's a rarity.
Cool. Sweet. That's awesome. So we're going to move on to our cues.
Okay.
But we need some cues, guys. Hit us up. podcast@combatbase.com. One of the most fun things about this podcast has been interacting with the people online, receiving the questions, answering the questions. I know Chris and Melissa love to get these questions and answer them, so send them in. And we got a special new component to our show. We have a hotline now. So if you don't feel like writing in an email, you can hit the hotline and you can leave a message. And the number is 949-791-7763. You can hit the hotline, leave a message. It's a question or a rant, and we'll feature you on the show. We'll play your message on the show and then answer your questions or respond to your rant. So hit the hotline. You can text the hotline too, and we'll get you on the show. If you want to be a part of our show,
yep, give it a call.
Hit the hotline. Sick. So we do have a couple of questions that came through. The first one's from Thibaut from France.
Hi, Thibaut.
Hey, Thibaut.
What up, Thibaut? Chris, are we ever going to see you compete again?
Ooh, I don't know. I mean, one thing I know that I probably will not do is 5-minute matches. It's too fast. I don't like sprinting at my old age. I'm not even warmed up until I've been rolling for at least 8 minutes. I mean, I'm sure if somebody stuck me in some pro league fight and everything looked right, I'd do it. Just if not, because it would be the excuse I would need to get back in shape, which would help, because then I would have a fear-filled reason to like, shit, I better get in shape.
Maybe we can get you a paid match, and that would like be you would not only make money, but you'd also get in shape. So it'd be like a win-win-win.
Win-win-win.
Craig Jones.
What's up, Craigie?
What's up, Craig?
Boy?
You need Craig. Craig, I'm looking at you, buddy. You need a Masters Legends
fight.
Masters
super
25.
fight. You need a Legends super fight, and I think there's a very few number of.
I gotta say that I would have a hard time turning it down.
Especially if it was for a
You hear
mill.
that?
Oh,
Legends super. How many competition ready or potentially competition ready 6th, 7th degree black belts are there in the world?
Well,
There's a handful
Megaton will
out there.
kick Chris's butt.
There's
No,
one
he
handful.
Come on.
No, he wouldn't.
Oh, Megatone. That's funny. We
All
brought that
right.
name
He
up.
beat me by 2 points
At the last one?
in our one and only match
No, that's
We
the
were,
only,
like,
only match you ever had?
with Megaton.
Was the super fight.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
And he beat me by 2 points. We were like both 54 or something like that.
Okay, so
Let's
Megaton,
go.
that's it. And
Give me Megaton.
Megaton
Clever.
lifestyle.
Kick your butt?
I'd do Clever again. He's beaten me before. I've never
Clever's
beat
beaten
him.
you
but
multiple times.
Yep.
All the way through, but it was always
It's always really fucking close.
Fuck, that'd be sick,
So we got
huh?
Megaton, we got Clever.
I'll take
Craig,
it.
we're doing your job for you, buddy. We're coming up with the matches already. You can
America versus Brazil.
America versus
I don't know
Brazil.
if they would accept. No, I think Clever would.
Meg would too.
Megaton
for
Come on,
sure
Meg.
would.
Get out
Yeah.
of here. He totally
Mackenzie
would.
fought
Yeah,
on
he
the
would.
CGI.
Yeah, he would
He
accept.
totally
Yep.
would, especially for a mill.
Oh, anybody accept anything for $1 million. Yeah.
Sweet. Well, Craig. Come on,
What's up,
Craig. What's up, Craig? What's up, Craig? All right. Next question. This is from at H38-784.
What's up, H3H-784?
What's your take on religion?
Ooh.
Some people claim Jiu Jitsu as a religion.
They do.
What are your thoughts on that?
That's very controversial. Walk a fine line.
I think the most wonderful philosophy started by the most wonderful person in the world can turn really dark if it becomes a religion. I think the religification of things is not only natural course for human groups to do, but it has a blessing and a curse behind all of it, right? Like you often meet the Christian who says it's not a religion, but then they say because it's the only thing that's true. And then you meet people from all various forms of, I don't want to get controversial at all. I think religion is part of our genetics, part of our cultural evolution, and being the odd man out in a religious environment historically has been really bad. You get burned at the stake. And in modern world, you get shamed away. So I'm not a fan of the dark parts of religion. There are certain religions out there that the percentage of elders are, a high percentage of them are pedophiles. There's a no, I'm not going to get into some of my stats, but
yeah, let's not single anyone out. But like jiu-jitsu as a religion, I mean, I think that we were just talking about this today, that it's natural for humans to try to make sense of the world, and that religion helps people try to make sense of the world.
Yes.
It also provides people with a sense of ethics,
a tribe, a sense of ethics
and morality, which isn't just something like, I find that we do not participate in a religion, and we do not claim that jiu-jitsu is our religion. It has been a hobby, it is our career, and it's our kind of something that we do with our lives. But if it were a religion, we would be forcing it onto our children, right? Which is something we're not doing. So how do you raise children with sense of morality and ethics without any religion whatsoever? That is our science experiment. I was raised very religious. I went to Catholic school, did all that kind of stuff, and it provided what it provided. But at the end of the day, I decided for me that it didn't really work. It didn't really make sense. I'm also a biologist and look at humans as animals and, different things. So I found for me what worked. And a lot of it came through a lot of trials and tribulations and, crises in my life to find a spirituality that worked for me that wasn't religious. But how do I then give that to my children? So I think it's mainly through being an example of whatever, but they're going to have their own struggles to get someplace. And then our daughter wants to be religious. So she's going through to be Catholic. She's completing sacraments and doing that, and we support that.
And I fully support it. Like one of the things that I love, I am a philosopher. Now, what does that mean? It means that I often love the question more than the answer. I like not having to have answers. I like that each answer leads to more questions. And one of the greatest, more modern debates in ethics is, does it require a quote-unquote God, a prime mover, to set up the rules? Or do those rules derive naturally? And whether you're talking to an atheist quantum physicist or a philosophy religion guy or whoever, there's a lot of good arguments for each of those views. But I generally hold that there is a natural answer for what I see as natural phenomenon. And we create supernatural answers for unanswerable natural phenomenon. And one of those is ethics. And sometimes it brings people to a panic to think, they'll often say, well, if there is no God, you could just run around, rape, rob, and kill, and there'd be no punishment. And I can answer that, but it would be a whole other show.
Not this show.
Maybe someday we'll get
So
there
if
to a religion show.
but my I will end with, if you need a God to keep you from rape, robbing, and killing, I hope you find
it,
fucking
please.
God.
Yeah, I think I think that ultimately at the end of the day, it's whatever works for the individual, you know. And some people, religion is really beneficial in their lives, and it was at one point in mine. Yeah. It's really, I support it. My hats are off.
So you're thinking you're Vader choking me last night? You're like, I hope you find God, boy. All right. Sweet, guys. Good pod.
What's up, everybody? So if you would like to get your first month free of Combat Base Club membership, you can type in the promo code PODCAST, and that gives you access to our video library, online classes, and merchandise discounts. If you would like to buy some merchandise online and want to receive an additional 10% off, you can type in the discount code PODCAST10. That's for art, shirts, hats, rash guards, shorts, patches, all kinds of merch. Find it at combatbase.com.
Pound, like, and subscribe.